The Chinese government is planning to impose a national security legislation on Hong Kong. This has further widened the ongoing protests in Hong Kong, and also many countries have openly criticized this move. Hong Kong, which came under the administrative control of China in 1997, has a special kind of arrangement when it comes to administration. In today's discussion, we shall understand the administrative setup of Hong Kong with respect to China, what is its historical background, why are lakhs of people protesting in Hong Kong streets, and what is the new security legislation all about. First, let us look at the historical background of Hong Kong. Let's try and not go much deeper into the history. We'll start with the 19th century. It all started with the First Opium War, which was started in 1839 and ended in 1842. It was fought between the British Empire and the Qing dynasty. Well, please note here, Qing is written as Qing. So at the end of the First Opium War, which is also called as the Anglo-Chinese War, the Chinese Navy was defeated by the British Navy. And as an outcome of the war, the Qing dynasty handed over the Hong Kong to the British Empire. This was followed by the Second Opium War, which was fought between the combined forces of British and French Empire against the Qing dynasty. Following the victory of the British Empire in this war, the whole of Hong Kong landmass was given to the British Empire. And finally, a convention was signed between the British Empire and Qing dynasty. As per the convention, the Hong Kong region was leased to the British Empire for a period of 99 years, starting from 1898. At the end of this 99-year lease period, the Hong Kong was returned to China in 1997. And since then, the Hong Kong is governed as a special administrative region of China. As per this mechanism, Hong Kong maintains separate governing and economic systems from that of mainland China under a principle of one country, two systems. Well, please note here, this principle, that is one country, two systems, is applicable to two regions. One is Hong Kong, the other one is Macau. This principle essentially means that there would be only one China, but these regions could retain their own economic and administrative systems. So as per this principle, these two regions could continue to have their own governmental systems, legal, economic and financial affairs, including trade relations with foreign countries. And all these activities shall be independent from the mainland China. So it's been more than 20 years since the Hong Kong came under the administrative control of China. Let us now understand the administrative setup of Hong Kong. See, officially it is called as the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. It is a small region with a population of nearly 7.5 million and an area of 1,100 square kilometers. But Hong Kong is one of the most densely populated places in the world and is also one of the greatest financial centers in the whole of world. Its significance can be understood from the following facts. Please note, it is the world's 10th largest exporter and 9th largest importer. Hong Kong's currency, which is Hong Kong dollar, is the 8th most traded currency in the world. Besides, Hong Kong also has the largest concentration of ultra high net worth individuals. Here, ultra high net worth refers to net worth of at least 30 million US dollars. So Hong Kong has the largest concentration of ultra high net worth individuals of any city in the world. Where is it located? If you look at the map, you will notice that Hong Kong is located on China's southern coast, which is 60 km east of Macau. It is on the east side of the mouth of the Pearl River estuary. More importantly, it is surrounded by the South China Sea on all sides except the north. Basically, Hong Kong is a part of China, but the principle, that is one country, two systems, gives it a special degree of autonomy. This policy also allows Hong Kong to have its own basic law, which is called as the mini constitution. But please note here, this policy or this principle is applicable only for a period of 50 years, starting from 1st July 1997. And please note here, Hong Kong is ruled by a chief executive and he is supported by the Executive Council, which is a body of advisors. The basic responsibilities of a chief executive is to implement the basic law, sign the bills and budgets, promulgate laws, etc. So how is Hong Kong's chief executive chosen or elected? The chief executive is elected by an election committee consisting of 1,200 members. And please note here, the members of the election committee should be the permanent residents of Hong Kong. They are actually individuals or representatives from 38 subsectors representing various trades, professions, labor and social welfare groups as well as district organizations. Well, please note here, the voting nature or voting criteria is not equally divided among the citizens or the voters. For example, the agricultural and fisheries sector has 60 votes despite representing only 0.1% of Hong Kong's economy, whereas the finance and insurance sectors combined have only 47 votes. So because of this uneven and undemocratic nature, the electoral system of Hong Kong has always been criticized. And surprisingly, even foreign companies can vote for representatives in various sectors in Hong Kong. Therefore, we can conclusively say that ordinary Hong Kong residents have no say in Hong Kong's chief executive election. And apart from chief executive, the Hong Kong also has the Legislative Council. It has 70 seats. Of this, 35 members are directly elected by the public from 5 constituencies. And another 30 seats represent functional constituencies. What are these? They are nothing but smaller groups representing special interests, primarily businesses, banking and trade. And apart from these, even 5 district councillors are also a part of the Legislative Council. Besides Chief Executive and the Legislative Council, Hong Kong also has 18 district councils, and basically their role is just advisory in nature. The next question we now have is, how much control does Beijing have over the Hong Kong? Technically speaking, since Hong Kong is an autonomous region, it has certain level of autonomy or independence from that of mainland China. And that is the reason it has got an independent judiciary, and this judiciary is responsible for determining whether the Hong Kong government's actions are legal or not. But there is another body in mainland China which is called as the National People's Congress Standing Committee, NPCSC. This body, which is called as China's rubber stamp parliament, holds the ultimate power of interpretation of the law of Hong Kong. So even though there is a mini constitution, there is a chief executive, legislative council, district councils and independent judiciary. However, the ultimate authority still rests with the mainland China. So despite being an autonomous region, the ultimate administration of Hong Kong rests with that of mainland China. Now let us have a look at the proposed national security legislation by China on Hong Kong. As of now, the exact details of the bill are not known yet. However, it is confirmed that the bill contains a provision which makes it a criminal offence to insult the Chinese national anthem. So if enacted, this will be for the first time that a Chinese law containing criminal penalties is being imposed in Hong Kong's legal code. As per the draft issued by Chinese government, the proposed legislation mainly aims at preventing splitism, subversion, terrorism, any behavior that gravely threatens national security and foreign interference. So the objective of bill is clear. The ultimate aim of this legislation is to unite Hong Kong with that of mainland China and implement all the Chinese rules and regulations there. Some experts have already speculated the implications of this law. They say the law potentially allows Beijing to arrest anyone whom it deems as a threat to the national security. So this eventually could lead to restrictions on free speech and expressions. And it might even go further and prompt media as well as individuals to adopt something called as self-censorship. And ultimately, in an extreme scenario, opposition broadcasters and newspapers could face closure. So now, the final question we have is, despite having one country, two systems principle, can Chinese or the Beijing have the authority to impose this law? Technically speaking, no, because according to Hong Kong's mini constitution or the basic law, the Hong Kong territory is required to implement its own national security law to replace the colonial legislation. But so far, chief executives of Hong Kong have failed to enact such a legislation. So taking this as an opportunity, the Beijing has now said that it cannot wait any further, so it will implement its own national security legislation in Hong Kong. But ultimately or finally, such an action would be outside and above Hong Kong's constitutional, political and legal structure. Besides, Hong Kong basic law says that Chinese laws can't be applied in Hong Kong unless they are listed in a section called Annex 3 of the mini constitution. There are already many laws listed there, but they are mostly uncontroversial. But if the imposition of national security legislation on Hong Kong is listed there, it amounts to breach of the principle, which is one country, two systems principle. And it could further lead to deficiency in trust between the Hong Kong residents and the Chinese government. This might as well attract the international attention. Many powerful countries, including the USA and India, are in favor of Hong Kong. But the worst implication of such an unrest would be on big multinational companies. Hong Kong right now is a great financial hub, but if investors lose confidence, hundreds of multinational corporations headquartered in Hong Kong would start moving away from this region. And above all, If social instability continues, professionals would move out of the region seeking new job opportunities elsewhere, leading to brain drain. So that was all it for today. Thank you.